it can feel strange to have the law be working for you for a lot of us. It can be surprising the ways that it can protect you uh, when it's been used as a tool against you for so long.
Hey, hi, hello, and welcome back to the Queer Vision Pod. I am your co-host, Co, and in a second we will be sitting down with our co-host we all know and love, Miss Becca, and someone that I think you may love even more. Don't tell her I said that, but Butch Siegel is who we sat down with today, and oh my God, where do I start? They're a queer attorney, a community advocate, the owner of Butch Law. They specialize in name changing, estate planning, small business contracts, all with a focus on making the law actually accessible for our community. And as a queer person, I know that there's a lot of gray area when it comes to laws for a lot of us, and it's a very, very scary topic. So what Butch is doing is so, so important for our community. Um, it honestly, it surprised me how this conversation went because we started, talking about law, but then we really ended up coming to a full conversation about how we all talk to each other, how we take in information, and what it means to find that common ground without completely losing ourselves within community. And I think that's something we try to hit a lot on this podcast. Also, there is some really good news in here about some name change laws that did get recently dropped in North Carolina. So if you are looking to change your name in North Carolina, not only could Butch help you with that, but this law could help you quite a bit. So without further ado, let's stop listening to me yap and let's get into that conversation.
I am Becca, and this is Coe.
So nice to meet you. Thank you so much for sitting
You
down with us
too.
on the Queer Vision Pod today.
I'm so excited. All right, so Koe, how do you spell that?
Koe.
AOE. Okay, I love that. I have to write
Cute.
it down, or I won't remember.
Honestly, okay, so usually we start this by just having you kind of explain who you are, your history, your name, your pronouns, and all that jazz.
Very cool. So my name is Butch Siegel. Any pronouns work for me, and I'm the owner operator of Butch Law, where I'm an attorney for folks that need name changes, folks that want to plan ahead for their sickness or death through estate planning, and I help folks get their small businesses together in a way that's going to benefit them and not expose them to more liability. I became a lawyer back in 2023, graduated law school, barred, all of that loveliness, and I've been working with wedding vendors since then. So it's an interesting niche of law, wedding planners tend to be a little type A, and it comes into their contracts, and I love it. It's so fun because I get to help them make other people's days, and I love doing B2B kind of work with business to business contracts. But what's interesting to me is being a butch lesbian within that space and
Ah,
doing that attract and repel kind of thing where there's some people that they really appreciate having me be out and proud as a butch lawyer helping them and they feel that they can trust me as opposed to maybe the stuffy straight white guy that's down the hall. So
yeah.
it's been interesting to be in that space just as openly queer and letting people who don't want to deal with you because of that see themselves out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
as they should, let's be honest. So how did you end up in that wedding venue niche? Like, was that on purpose or was that just like it just happened and you're like, okay, I like it here?
Well, I was really into contracts. Contracts are an interesting part of law because it's a private law, whereas the government enforces some laws for the benefit of everyone, and that's stuff that we vote on. That's the public law. There's private law that says you and I can agree to a set of rules ourselves. And it
Right.
touches on so many interesting topics that are fascinating to me. Everything that you do personally is in some form a contract. Weddings are a contract between two people, but you also have when you go to the store, you're making a contract. So it's a promise and keeping promises. And I found this fella out of California who was running an online law firm for all these different wedding vendors. And he was looking for queer attorneys to join him. And so I said, well, I'd love to do that. And I responded. So I've been going to wedding MBA in Vegas on his behalf for the past few years, which is the National Conference of Wedding Planners. And then while I was there, I met more and more people who work in North Carolina. And I thought, well, I could do the contracts for the wedding people. I can do the prenups because I love estate planning, and I can get people set up with their small businesses. So I think I'm going to start my own law firm that helps folks in my community access this stuff that is doing so much for folks that have been able to get legally married for years and years and years, but that is kind of new for our community and our generation. I was in college when gay marriage was nationally legalized. So there's a lot of legal opportunities that are new to us and that marginalized folks have not been able to take advantage of, that I want to use my privilege as an attorney to help people access.
I
I
really
love
like
that.
that. Yeah.
I think it's so important, like you said, because it's so like in some ways foreign to queer people because it's just where the laws are newer and we face so much pushback just within our own love and our queerness at times. I feel like it's easy to like forget about the logistical pieces of it too. So I think it's really important that there are people
And
like you advocating and like,
it can feel strange to have the law be working for you for a lot of
mhm,
us. It can be surprising the ways that it can protect you when it's been used as a tool against you for so long.
Yeah.
exactly.
So how are you dealing with like everything that's happening right now with like I mean, and it might not even affect what you're doing yet. I don't know, but like where they're trying to take basically these laws and overturn them, right? Like how they're like, okay, we're going to try and make it so that trans people can't get this care. I mean, we know it's coming eventually somebody is going to fight for getting rid of gay marriage, right? How does that affect what you're doing, or how can the law actually protect us in that way, I guess, if that makes sense?
Absolutely. So I wrote an article a few months ago about how to Trump-proof your marriage. And I talk about some of the history of that, where we were making our own versions of marriage through private law before we went and actually got it publicly. So if you remember in The Birdcage with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane, they're
Mhm.
talking about a palimony agreement. That's what Nathan Lane's character wants, a palimony agreement. And for a very long time, that was the gay community's version of marriage. It says that we want to be partners as much as the law allows, and it remade some of the legal protections of marriage outside of the system that was set up publicly. And it's part of what helped us get legally recognized marriage, because it was like these people are already doing it. They're already committed in this same way. They've remade it, but we're not allowing them the tax designation? That's crazy. So it's another form of argument, but you can always look back and see that the struggles that we're facing now were faced in a slightly different form by our community forever. I mean, you just go back and I think about during the AIDS crisis, how we were pushing for legally recognized marriage there, and how non-spousal partners could not be with their partners. For a big part of that, estate planning was key. There were many gay men who passed away and whose loved ones could not direct their assets or even claim to bury them. It was terrible. And the biological families either took advantage of the situation, or often they had no interest in the person. And what we saw within the queer estate planning lawyers community, niche, but very relevant for me, we saw a creativity within the tools that we all using the tools that we already had to recreate. And I think that that's going to serve us now and moving forward, saying, all right, what do we have right now? What do we have to work with that we can use in case things go sideways? And I'll tell you that I'm
Right.
Mhm.
also positive, or I'm optimistic about the future in a legal way.
Yeah.
I am. And I know that that's surprising. And it's something that I've talked about with other attorneys, and they're like, "You are?" I say, "Yeah, and here's why." It's small things, and the law moves really, really slowly. we still use a lot of Latin. That tells you how out of touch we tend to be and how long it takes things to change. North Carolina didn't start filing things online with the courts until last year. It takes us a long time, but we're making slow progress and we're making it in daily wins. So, for example, last July, Governor Stein signed into law this bill. It was the state law 2025-54, and it has a bunch of little changes to statutes and it's linguistic nuance. But if you look at the General Statute 101, which allows name changes in North Carolina, they changed something really, really cool that has prevented so many people from accessing the service. And that is that before December 1st of last year, 2025, you had to physically go to the courthouse and pin up a notice that you were changing your name and leave it there for 10 days and then come back and finish your name change. This comes from way back in the day where it was literally like a hear ye, hear ye. I'm going by a different
Yeah, that's
name,
what it
Ollie Ollie
feels like.
Oxenfree. There's a lot of that. I mean, literally, when you open the Supreme Court, they say, oyez, oyez, all rise. We're moving slowly. We're moving slowly. Just be glad that I don't have to wear the wig, you know? It'd get in the way of my
It looked
headset.
great though.
Thank you, thank you. I did have the curls. I thought about doing it. I had a friend in Tennessee who asked me if we still do that. I said no. But this law
You can always
makes it
bring it
so that you
back.
don't have to. I should. I should. I think. I think that we need to theorize drag personas next because I really think that like we could do a fundraiser with a bunch of attorneys. Work.
I'm
Miranda
in.
writes. Paige Turner. There we go.
I'm in love.
So
Let's do it.
this statute got changed and it's last July they signed it. December 1st, you no longer have to go down to the courthouse and put up a sign for 10 days, which really helps people who don't want everyone and their brother, which not that many people are going to be walking through the courthouse, but still,
Yeah, but
you don't
still.
want it out there that, yeah, here's my dead name, or I am trying to get away from people who are trying to find me. Let's keep it private. I mean, it's small things like that. That's changed. And the address confidentiality program, which helps you if you're trying to get away from bad people, it got easier to get into. If you look at what our attorney general is doing, Jeff Jackson of North Carolina, he is doing some really great work on behalf of our state. He fought for the funding to recover from Helene. And after Helene, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the work of the North Carolina Bar Association, but a bunch of us went down and helped people figure out all of the estate planning stuff and what happens when your house got washed away and how do you work with the insurance companies? And I'm really proud of the work that we got done down there. And I see in the generation of lawyers my age and stepping into the profession a tenacity and a rejection of a lot of what we've seen as far as inaction on the legislators' half. I just think the group that we have now is going to do some really good work. And our youngest senators and our youngest representatives in the House are putting forward these small changes that are affecting so many members of our community in a great way.
That's fair.
I think that the group of attorneys that we have entering the profession now are going to be doing some great work, and I think that as we grow closer as a community and we become focused on that interpersonal contact that we've gotten to get away from because of COVID, I think that the more we talk to each other and the more that queer attorneys are hearing from the community, the more we're going to see the community's interests reflected in the law.
That's fair. I think that's a lot of what we're just seeing in general when it comes to like the government, right? Like standing like getting rid of like the law itself and like attorneys and things like that, like looking at the representation that we haven't had in our government, the more that like the younger generations get to the point where they're like, I'm fed up with this, like let's change this. and the more community that we have where people who are in power are actually listening to us, then like, and honestly, some people dying would help, right? But like, the more the more people are actually communicating, I think it's going to go that way. My anxiety, like I hear you're very optimistic with this, and I'm so happy about that because being an attorney, that like that optimism makes me feel better that you are optimistic. But my anxiety of it is definitely, will they listen? Will the propaganda split us up more before they listen? What is going to happen to our neighbors, like that kind of stuff. So like how do you as an attorney encourage, or what would you ask of us as a community to figure out what all we need and how to say it to the people that are higher up?
Think that the first step before you move ahead in any plan is to figure out what you already have. If I'm planning to go on a hike, I'm going to make sure that, oh, I have my boots. Look at that. I've got a backpack. Oh, I've got a hiking pole. I have all these tools. Let me use them.
Right.
So I think that the first step is to understand the legal avenues that we have right now. When we look at the way that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, fought for women's rights, you look at her making small lawsuits where she would use the law of the day to say, hey, look how it applies in this case. Isn't that weird? And then it would go to a higher court and it would become a little more entrenched in the law. And they would accept her argument here and here until finally she was at the Supreme Court. And by that time, all of the courts had been talking about it. It was a coordinated effort with the ACLU. And we had some serious case law that they couldn't ignore. So she used the existing law to do that. We have a lot of resources through the law that exist. And I think understanding what it actually says really helps. I'll tell you that my in-laws are conservative, and we had a discussion about what due process actually means. And I was able to say, hey, when you go into the Constitution, what do you think due process means? And I think inviting people to share their perspective is really going to help not just you understand them, but it helps them understand that they have a point of view and that their point of view is different and it's not objective truth, it's a subjective interpretation. And it helps both of you when you allow someone to tell you what they think and then you go, okay, so when I read this, here's what I'm hearing. This is what it says to me. This is what this person has said about it. This is what due process was at the time. This is what it is now, and this is how I see it. But I think understanding what these laws mean and what our legal avenues are essential before you can really affect change.
Like, I feel like I want to be the person that can go to my conservative parents and be like, "I would like to hear your position. I would like," but it pisses me off, and then I can't form words when I'm mad, and then
Yeah.
I look mad, and then I come off like I'm having an attitude even when I'm trying to be calm because I'm like, "Hi, I'm being calm right now." And then they're like, "You look like you wanna murder us." And I'm like, "That's fair, actually." Like, okay, wait. How, for those of us who can't be calm in situations like that, would you just encourage us to just educate ourselves? Would you encourage us, like, to just work on building community? What would be your recommendation for people who either don't have the opportunity that you do to talk to people of different beliefs or don't have the ability?
So I'm gonna 2 points.
Yeah,
First, my dad is a criminal defense trial attorney. So I grew up with him and me, and he always talked to me about his cases, and we would talk to each other about it. And let me tell you what, when you cross-examine your dad about bedtime, it leaks out into your confidence to enter conflict in the future. So when I have discussions with people, I'm level-headed because I've been doing this a very long time. And
fair.
second, I always think about this poem by John Keats, and it's called Ode to a Grecian Urn, right? And it's this guy, and he's coming up, and it's this big vase, and you can see them in like the Art Museum of Chicago. And on each side, they have a different painting, and it's a scene from Greek mythology. But you can't see them all at once because it's a round thing, you've got to walk around it. And the artist is looking at the vase and he's so excited to be so smart about this vase. And he's like, I see this scene. People, and there's a hill, and that could be that one famous guy. What? And he's like, "No, it's okay. I'm gonna totally understand this vase on the next side. Like, I've got this." And he looks, and it's a totally different scene. It seems completely unrelated. And he keeps walking around, and there's four different scenes, and he's like, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what this is supposed to be. I was so confident, and I really wanted to have my opinion about this. And the point of it, as I read it, is that you can't understand the truth of a subject from one point of view. If you are standing on a different side of the vase and you say that, there's this picture on that side of the vase, and I say, you're wrong, that's not what the vase looks like, that doesn't mean that you're not seeing this picture. It means that I am seeing the other side. So I think that truth exists in a more three-dimensional, four-dimensional kind of form than just words on a paper or something that could be easily reduced.
Mm.
I think that we understand reality best when we come at it from many different angles and when we all say what we are viewing. And so I think that that is a great way to approach those difficult conversations because you can say, okay, from my point of view, that is clearly not part of the vase. That is absolutely out there. I'm really curious about how on earth you're seeing that in the vase? But at the same time, it's like you might be seeing a different part of the vase that I'm not seeing. And the way you describe it's different the way that I describe it. Like, let's find what's in common. Okay, we both care about the welfare of innocent children. What we define as innocent children, what we define as welfare might be different, but we're coming from a place that has the same value, that has the same direction for our community. And I think that when we find that commonality and when we can voice it to each other and be like, you know what? You make great sweet tea. That is a great value. That is a great contribution. And you know what? I care about some of the things you care about, like good sweet tea. And you can find some commonality. It really helps.
Leaving it the sweet tea. I feel like that's why I live with
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
parents. I'm just like, you
Yeah.
know what? Hey, here's the thing. I know that if any politics come up, we will be at each other's throats because I don't understand how you believe anything Fox News says. But hey, you know what? It's fine. Everything's fine. We both really love our pets. So anytime we
Yeah.
talk, the first things we do is just say, hey, this is what my dog did today.
Mhm.
And then that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
I think you want to think about primary and secondary sources.
Mm,
This is like a deep cut from my English undergrad, but your primary source being what the document tells you about itself and what it is on its face, and your secondary source is I'm hearing it from someone else talking about it. So when someone is describing the laws or the actions of the government or they're talking about it, are they looking at the documents and the actions that are happening on a primary level? Are they saying, this is what's happened, these are the facts? Or are they
mm.
listening to what someone else is using the facts to frame? What's the context that they're hearing this in? Because we can hear two very different stories from the same set of facts. On one hand, that's really good because that's the basis of our judicial system is that an adversarial system where two people are advocating against each other and saying, hey, I'm competing with that guy, but that makes me try harder to show that this is the way that we should see it. This is what I think the facts mean. And the other guy says, no, I think this is what those facts mean. And it's important to our culture to embrace that adversarial kind of collaboration. And I do think it's a collaboration. Like you can't
Yeah,
look at it from the perspective of a fight because then your brain is always telling you that there's got to be a loser and it could be you.
that's
So
fair. That's fair.
I think thinking about it from where they're getting their sources and not as an argument is going to be helpful.
Honestly pulls me back to the thought that I did have that
Oh,
returned. And I think it's so interesting to think about just like how, I don't know, and this is getting a little woo woo and spiritual with it, but I think it does overlap. It's just like how at the end of the day, we are like a conductor of sorts. Like, I don't know if that's the right word, but like whenever you're taking in any information, media, it's all going through the human mind. It's going through our ears, through our eyes, through our senses, and then we're interpreting it to what it means to us through our lived experience, through our belief system too. So it's very easy to, I don't know. It makes sense when you think of it that way, how people can get to a completely different belief or assumption when you're looking at the same thing, I think. And I
Yeah.
think that's what you've been really saying this whole time too,
Yeah.
like in a way. I don't know. I just think that's interesting and it's so
Yeah, when we
important in the
take
place that
in
we're at in the world.
information, we don't disseminate it purely. Like,
Exactly.
we are always communicating within the filter, within the lens of our background and everything that's informed us up to this point. That's how we work. I think it's interesting because there's so much overlap with intent in the law and intentionality with ourselves. And you say, okay, did they mean for that to happen? Or well, did they mean for that to be their will? And once you can identify it, it just helps. It helps you in every part of your life. So when I do like a session for estate planning with a client, oftentimes it just helps them understand what they value. And
Mm.
Mhm.
it's cool because I get to really embrace the counselor part of being an attorney and say, okay, we are filtering it through. These are the facts. What does that mean to you? What's your lens here? How do you want this to happen?
I love that because, like, so I'm a professional organizer. So I have a lot of clients that, like, our main goal is to get rid of things, right? And, like, sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes it's like, okay, I just don't know where to put my things. So I just keep getting more of them because I don't know where I put them, right? And then that's pretty easy. It's like, hey, you have 10 duplicates of these scissors. Do you need 10? No. Okay, let's get rid of a few. But sometimes it is like, hey, I had 4 kids, so I kept all of their paperwork and I lost my husband last year, so I have all of his stuff still exactly where it was. And like it is very much like going through and being like, okay, you're really stressed because you have so much stuff here. One, do you think that like they would want you to be stressed about keeping their stuff? No. And like, okay, somebody got you this gift 10 years ago and you never pulled it out of the box, but you kept it because you felt bad getting rid of it. Do you think they would want it sitting here, like in this garage? No.
I
Okay.
love that.
So, like, I really do like that because that I think unintentionally I was doing a lot of those things, and then that kind of brings me back to, like, the fact that, like, everything is connected. So, like, just being able to I would say treat my parents like
This
their
is so really
clients.
thinking. But I mean, in a way, yeah, it's like going back to even what you said about taking like what skill sets, what tools you already have in your
Yeah.
toolbox, and using that.
Yeah. I think it's just hard, especially whenever it's like, I feel like I can have these conversations with people that are my age or, like, some of my clients even will bring up top I never bring up politics with my clients. They bring it up with me. I will never. But every once in a while we have a conversation and I can like kind of like brush it off a little bit and be like, okay, oh, that's a different way of looking at it. One is my parents. I'm immediately thrown back to I'm still a child and they
Hmm.
think I'm an idiot. And now, like, they're the ones who taught me how to research and do all
Hmm.
this shit and they're doing it wrong.
Yeah, it's
So maybe that's
back to
just
that.
that. Maybe that's that lens right there.
Yeah, and I think when first of all, I love that you're like a decluttering doula. Incredible.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
Do it, please. Get the
Declutter doula.
domain name. I think it works. But now I'm stuck on decluttering doula and I'm proud of myself. But
It was very good.
thank you. Thank you. I've forgotten my point.
Okay, I love the way that you speak though, because like I feel like I thoroughly don't understand the law. Like whenever I read something, like I love reading. But when I read the law, I'm like, the fuck does this mean? Like, this is just a bunch of really big words in a row. Like, this doesn't actually make any sense. And so I love talking to people like you who can actually read that and then like filter it into
Hmm.
like normal people speak. And like, I know that's technically that secondary source that you're talking about of like, I am not listening or I'm not reading it myself. but like it does help truly understand what the hell is going on. And so like I have a few people that I follow on like TikTok that will explain some of the things. Like they'll highlight it and be like, okay, this is what this exact thing means. Like don't be scared about this because this has actually been here this entire time. Like people are just finding out about it because they're just looking at it. I honestly, if you could just read the entire Constitution
I can't stand.
And all of the amendments, everything, just like I'd be really happy.
Like,
and then
this
you
is
can
what
read the
this
Bible
fucking
to me because
means.
it's a really good mythology. Exactly.
Honestly, I think that we found a new content series for me. I've been meaning to have a
Yeah.
reason to be on TikTok. I think that's it.
Let's do it.
You know,
No,
I can
real.
be
do
like,
it.
here is where this got real girly pops. Benjamin
Yes.
Cardozo. Picture it.
No,
And be like,
seriously,
you
please.
want to
I would
know how
literally
we got
follow
the
you.
free speech that we have? Let me tell you.
Yes.
That's actually a
Can you
weird
make this a
story. That
thing?
one's it's a very
Seriously.
cool
Oh,
story.
tell
I
me.
mean, I think I might.
Okay.
It's a long thing. But there was
Summarize.
a Supreme Court justice who was brand new, and there was a Supreme Court justice who'd been there for a very long time, and they met on a train as they were passing. Or there was one that he'd been a justice for a long time. There was another one who was a well-known attorney, but he was not yet a Supreme Court justice. And he was like,
Mm.
you got that free speech case wrong. Wrong. Completely wrong. And for the whole train ride, he wouldn't leave him alone. It was like, this is why it's wrong. And they kept writing. And then a year later, that same Supreme Court justice said, I was wrong. Here's why you can absolutely have this level of free speech, and I completely agree with that. So there's a lot of weird little things in the history of law I could talk about, but I love those little interactions. Like, you don't know, maybe
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
someone else overheard it on the train too, and it was beneficial. I think that having so
Yeah.
much social media makes us really self-conscious of any form of conflict because we see it as a really negative thing. When we see it, by the time it gets to us, it's popular, it's viral, or it's engaging. It's never entertaining to see someone have a healthy relationship and a boring conversation. So why would it come up on your social media? Why would that happen that way? But that doesn't mean it's not happening. And I think that we can do that. You know, like we can extend trust to each other and say, "Hey, let's talk about it." So
Yeah.
let's break it down. Also, with the law, let me tell you, you are right that it is confusing and outdated, and it needs to be written like real people.
I know I keep harping on the lens thing, but I just really love like that metaphor in the vase. And like, I'm so glad you shared that. But it's like, yeah, like even when you're talking about getting information for people, kind
Yeah.
of on topic, off topic, but like it's finding the person that has a similar lens, but then also still listening to the other ones. Does that make sense? I don't know. I felt like I had more of a point there.
Like you're kind of like talking about like, okay, we're
Like,
not
I
talking
think,
about like Fox News and CNN. We're talking
no,
about
I'm
like
talking about
this
like,
person has like a more conservative lens of way of looking at things, and this person has a more liberal lens. I'm more likely to understand the liberal lens a little bit more, but I should
exactly.
still be listening to the conservative
Yeah.
lens a little bit.
Like
That's what you're saying?
I think yeah, like you were talking about with like how Butch can break it down so well. It's like finding that person that has a similar enough lens to you
Yeah.
so that they can communicate things in a way that you will understand it, right?
Yeah.
Not to say, but I was just trying to preface that with like not to say that you should only listen to people who have the exact same lens as you,
But it does make it easier
but it
to
does make
understand
it
some things.
easier to yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you
to
understand it
me,
and then you have the
it's
conversation.
like if you had four people in a room and one person spoke French, one person spoke, let's say, Italian, one person spoke Norwegian, and person spoke acrylic language like Latvian. The French person can talk to the Italian person will be able to understand the Norwegian person, the Norwegian person's going to be able to understand the Latvian person, like a little bit, you know, because the languages, while all being separate, have similar bases and similar roots. And so having studied Latin, I'm going to understand some of the words that are based in Latin and the English language, but there's a lot that are based in the English language from Spanish and then from Arabic earlier. So wherever you're coming from, you just understand someone who came from a similar place. I think them having a different root, a different perspective, being near you, yeah, it makes sense. That's why they can hear you. They're your neighbor.
I just now I feel like I just like want to read all of the nonfiction books that are in my house.
No mood. I'm like, yes, I'm ready to research.
I'm ready to learn history. I mean, I love history. Here's the thing is like I actually feel like I was done a disservice, and a lot of people are, that like the teachers in middle school and high school are like, okay, history is memorizing these facts and doing this stuff. I still remember things about World War One because I had one teacher who would act things out. And he physically put a black glove on his hand so we could remember it was the black hand. And I was like, and then he tripped on a crack and then like I don't even remember what this one was for, but I remember him saying, Josephine, will you marry me? I remember him doing that. And I have no clue who Josephine is. I just remember that. And like, I'm like, if we had, stop laughing at
I'm
me.
sorry, it's just really taking me out. Sorry.
I'm sorry. But also, like, if all historians or like, well, I mean, I guess historians probably like talk like that to each other, but like, I don't know. I feel like we're done such a disservice by being like, yes, this is the Constitution and this is when things were made and this is the years that the Trail of Tears happened. Like, give me the drama. I know there was drama.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
you
like
know there
framing it
was.
in a
People
way.
are people.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got a great story about Cleopatra. Let me tell you what.
Tell me.
And here's the thing. There's a book by the journalist Stacy Schiff, and she wrote a book about Cleopatra. If you're looking to get into like the nonfiction that reads like fiction, she's the way to go. But Cleopatra was going to Rome, and she is very much trying to play up that Egypt is wealthy and worth Rome working with rather than just like trying to conquer. And so she soaks the sails of her ship in purple, which is made by like crushing the teeniest, tiniest snails for this much pigment, and then it's entire sails that are purple. She's got them with expensive perfume, okay? And she glides into town, and they're at dinner, and they give her like the best wine, the absolute best wine. And this queen, she's like, I like it when it has bubbles. And she takes off her earring with a pearl that's worth more than Rome makes in a year. And she drops it in her wine. Wine dissolves pearls. And when pearls dissolve in wine, they make it bubble like champagne. Like, I'm sorry, Cleopatra walked so Elizabeth Taylor could do whatever the fuck she was doing with Richard Burton. But, like, this is crazy. And you don't know that unless you read into all of the deep stuff. And I think that we have to find our niche of what we're really interested in and say, you know what? I'm going to spend the time to figure out the deep part of this. Like, what is the history of that? I'm curious about that. And I think that your curiosity will carry you, and finding people who are also curious and encouraging them, we love it. We love it. We all benefit.
That's true. That's true.
I'm really like, now I really want to see a series of you,
Yeah,
like,
please.
just like either going over constitutional laws of what it says or just like the history. And like, I know we brought up the wig earlier. I'm like, come on, pop on the old school wig, do a little drag. I don't know. It
I
could be a
should.
moment.
I should. It could. I'm thinking now. I think it could be. It could be. Oh my God. It'll be. I'll have like a little feature. I'll pop on like I'm the weatherman with my little wig. I love it. Yeah. Yeah, because they are all stories, and stories are trying to teach you different things or show you different perspectives. And the law is here because of stories. There's a ton of law about railroads, and so many of our protections for workers are because the railroads were abusing people, and eventually the unions were like, nope, not happening. And they sued, and we have like all of these different things about the way that train cars coupled together. Huge lawsuits because people lost their hands because they wouldn't do it automatically. You had to reach your hand between the cars as they're pushing together. Bad things. And the railroad companies were like, that sounds like not our problem. That sounds like, yeah, they were like, it would cost us money to fix that problem. How about he just doesn't do high fives as much? So, but like when we tell it as a story, it's cool. And I know that there's stuff that, law is something I'm really interested in as a story, but I think that it touches every part of our lives. There's something that you do because someone before you made a rule that says you get to do it that way or you can't do it a different way. And there's a story behind each rule. But I know that for both of y'all, there are such stories behind the way that you are and what you bring to your career. I love the curiosity of it. And I love that you have this podcast to Hear from each other. I love it.
Every time we've talked to somebody that is like a quote normal person and we're like, you should do an interview. You're really interesting. They're like, no, I don't really have a story. And then they come out with something out of left field that's like
Mhm.
so normal to them. And then it's like, yeah, I worked as a corrections officer and I made friends with this random person. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
you think that's okay. Can we interview you,
Because it's
please?
part
And then
of
they're just like,
their everyday life.
yeah.
They don't even think about
And
it.
like
Yeah.
they don't even they don't think about it. They're like, yeah, this is just my history. This is normal. And then like somebody else is going to get so inspired by that. And it's like that's all we want is for people to see that like everyone's story is so different and like
Mhm.
you're so important and
And also, like,
yeah,
on, like, the queer aspect of things too, like, showing that there's so many different
types
queer
of queer.
people from so many different walks of life, and I feel like, often in media there is the few stereotypes and caricatures of, like,
Yeah.
every queer person, and it's just that's not realistic, like, we literally are the same as everybody else, like, just with, like, a
And it's
connecting factor.
easy to think that with the amount of media that we have, that every kind of person is represented, and that something that kind of looks familiar-ish it's a flattened version of whoever that is, you know? It is two-dimensional. You are not in a real space with them, and they're not as different as you think, and they're more different than you think. It can feel hard when you don't see yourself represented, but at the same time, I think about what we see on social media very much in the way that the Greeks watched theater. And they had
Mhm.
like those big masks, and each mask had really exaggerated features. That's where you get the masks that you see on the outside of theaters today, where one's smiling and one's frowning. And it's because when they would be in the amphitheater in the late evening, and there's people way, 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 way back in the cheap seats, they have to understand broad gestures and general things. There's not room for nuance. And I think when you are interacting for a group that's really large or for a wide
Mhm.
audience, you can't really be precise with what you're presenting. And
That's true.
that you can really only understand the nuance and understand a person when you're right there with them engaging together. And when we see flat representation, I think we have to remember that they are gesturing broadly for the cheap seats.
I like that.
I like
I like
that, and
that.
it's so real, and also being someone who, like, social media was my full-time career, like, I agree, it is and, like, now I'm a performer, like, they're very similar, and there's a reason they go together
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, social media is still so curated,
Mhm.
and I think it's so easy even for people to I think most people grasp that now, but I think it's still even hard for some people, like, because 'cause I'll even be scrolling, it just gets to you, you forget for a second, "Oh, wait, like, it's meant to be entertaining. It's
Mhm.
meant to give us the best angles, the best lighting, the best camera quality, all, like
Stop comparing yourself to somebody that's fake.
yeah. And it's not even fake. It's just like
I mean, it is fake though.
it's
It's
like choosing
their
your profile picture to put up, I think, in a way.
yeah, that's
Right?
true.
It's like you're choosing the best version of yourself to showcase like you would in a business meeting, like you would in something that makes you money because social media can.
That's
Like,
true.
yeah.
That's true, I guess.
I
I was
think
thinking
that
like
social
it's a
media
fake 2D.
I think that it takes away some of the risk of a social interaction. You know,
I would
I
agree.
think we all know that in Facebook comments, people say stuff that they would never say in person. Not if they want to keep their teeth where they are
Surprise.
right now. Yeah. So I think that we have to remember that if you get a bad take on social media, press the X, do it again. And it lowers the stakes for what we say. And then when you interact with someone in person, you're either really aware of the high stakes because if you make a mistake, there's no little X to push, or you're expecting them to perceive the way that you speak as if you were very curated. And so there's more pressure to be more curated.
Yep.
Mm,
And you're like, that's how people talk when I hear them. So that's how I need to talk. And that's terrifying. There's there's a lot that it does to everyday interactions when what you're hearing is not everyday interactions. I think it's really cool. I love having headphones in the grocery store, but I'll tell you what, sometimes I take them off and I have an extra 20 minutes. I'm gonna go in there knowing that some Gertrude is gonna ask me why I'm buying snow or why I'm buying ice cream right before it snows. And three of them did.
yep.
But it's fun because I get to be like, well, why are you curious? Why are you buying 8 things of toilet paper? You've got 1 butt.
Yeah.
What's happening? You know?
Like, girl, maybe I want a
I don't
milkshake.
like, I said I could put the ice cream outside and save the freezer space. It's gonna be cold enough. The world's my freezer tonight. And like, but it's very much it's fun to talk to people that, it's actually lower stakes than anything on
Mm.
social media because there's an
They're complete
immediacy
strangers.
to it that you can't curate, but also it's like if you go on vacation to another city and you go, I'm never seeing these people again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like I can make the weird joke and it's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll laugh louder and with a weird horse laugh that I would not do back home. But I think you just bring it home. Let's do it.
Yeah. So that's the advice from this episode then is to act like nobody is watching you. You're
Yeah.
only in front of
Act like
strangers. Don't
nobody
worry,
you know
you're
is watching
fine.
you. It's true.
That is
It's true.
key.
We're
We got
always
this.
strangers to each other, but we can see each other's perspectives and learn more
Yeah,
about
because strangers are friends
ourselves
we
in
haven't
so
met yet.
doing.
See, look at that.
Oh, you tied a bow on it. Stop.
Look at us, guys.
I love it.
We're perfect.
Yes. As we are hitting that hour mark, was there anything else you wanted to
Yes.
touch on before we close out? Or if you want to promote your website, any social media, those kind of
ButchLaw.com.
things?
My blog is
Awesome.
called Hard Talks and Soft Landings. I have a lot of articles on there just explaining what's happening with the law, where we come from, more of what I talked about today, where I'm putting the law in context. So, why Pride and Prejudice is best understood by estate planning attorneys. That's on there. Also, how do you change your name and why do you need an estate plan and why those online forums are problematic? All that stuff. Hard talks and soft landings on butchlaw.com.
I am
I love
there.
that.
I am there already.
Well, yeah.
Well, thank you
Okay.
so much
All
for
right.
sitting
Thank
down
y'all. And you
and
have
sharing all
Yeah.
your
a great evening. Stay
You
safe.
too.
You
Stay
too.
warm. And
Stay
I look
dry.
forward to working with y'all in the future.
Yeah,
Of
same.
course. Have a good
Thanks so
weekend.
much. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Queer Vision podcast. Once again, I am Co, and our other co-host was Becca, and we sat down today with Butch Siegel of Butch Law. This was such an amazing conversation, and there's just so much that I pulled from it and Becca pulled from it, and we truly hope that you also pulled the same things from it. Honestly, the vase metaphor alone was one of my big takeaways from this episode. Just the reminder that you can't truly understand the truth from one point of view. You have to walk around. You have to see community. You have to talk to people. You have to hear people when they speak. And I always haven't been the best about that. I'm human. We all are. And I'm sure there's others of you that are listening that have also not always been the best about being that open book to hear everybody. A lot of times I feel like when people bring up concerns, we don't have the right framework on how to talk about it. And I feel like oftentimes it can come as an attack when it was never meant to be. Moral of the story, this was a really good episode. If you want to learn some more about Butch, you can find them at their website, butchlaw.com. If you need small business help, if you need a name change, if you need estate planning, once again, I'm going to stop yapping. I'm going to let you go. We'll see you in the next one.